Welcome to the Link Building Show, episode 5. With me, I've got Maddie here.
Hi.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about how can you land lots of coverage for your clients whilst also keeping a close relevance to their industry. As we know, with digital PR and with PR links, we need an exciting story in order to get some coverage in the media. Otherwise, journalists are not going to cover it. But we also need to have some relevancy to the client because the SEO benefits will be amplified. The more relevant the story is to the client's niche, the better the impact is going to be on the rankings or the website. So Maddie, how do we define the fine line between relevancy and an exciting story? How can we find some stories that journalists are going to be excited about and they're going to cover it in their publication whilst keeping relevancy as close as possible to the client?
I think it's a challenge. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we face in our role because it's a really fine line between finding something that is going to really appeal to journalists en masse and whilst also pushing the client's brand, not necessarily the client's products, but the client's branding. And so I think it's really difficult. I think the best way, the best types of campaigns for that is reactive stories and expert commentary. So reactives in terms of you're finding the news stories that are being talked about anyway. There's already a market there. Journalists already want stuff on that topic, and your client is the perfect fit. So it's just easy. It's easy to do stuff in terms of reactives to be on brand for the client. But also for expert commentary, what you're doing is you're using the client's expertise, and I think that perhaps expert commentary is the most on-brand piece that we can do. So we can then actually reveal insider knowledge, essentially, from our client. The audiences of various media outlets will want to know.
Awesome. Great. So let's talk about this expert commentary because I know we have kind of refined this practice quite a lot in the past few months. And people might think, you might have to chase the client to give you lots of expert commentary, but that's not necessarily the case, right? We can actually come up with expert commentary and pretend, I know it sounds bad, that the client has come up. Is that the case?
In some ways, yeah. I think the easiest ways for me to execute really good expert commentary is either liaising with the client themselves and getting it straight from them, sending them various questions or just a topic being as broad or as specific as you want to be or as your client wants to be, because actually having your client take time out of their day to provide insight is actually quite time consuming. However, if your client has a blog page or anything on their website that offers as a kind of guide to their customers on certain areas, being able to use that, repurpose that as expert commentary is really valuable and really good in terms of time. You can repurpose it in one day and have it sent out in the same day. And it can be really relevant too.
Exactly. You can just simply copy paste their sections from their blog articles, right? Put it in an email and send it out as an expert commentary, and you can get lots of placements. We got massive placements with this practice, right?
Yeah, I typically actually, funny enough, I don't like copy and pasting so much. I like to almost interview the article.
Oh, great.
I like to ask questions that the readers would want to know. So if it was on back pain while sleeping or something like that, you'd be talking about, is there a particular sleeping position that helps with back pain or actually increases back pain, and or is there a best time to go to sleep, or should you be sleeping for a really long time? Would that damage?
And then how would you take that content from the actual existing article? How would you merge the two together?
So I come up with the questions whilst I'm reading the article, essentially. So you're looking at the content that you already have, and you're just thinking like, what's really interesting, like what offers more insight, and then from there you can ask the article several different questions essentially, and all about like other niche topics. So you can talk about health. If it was for sleeping, something to do with sleep or lifestyle, you can talk about maybe like the best foods to help you get to sleep, and then you can market it. You can take that angle and then send it to food journalists.
So when you say ask the article, in interview like the article, how do you mean you read through it and you find some answers and then you reverse engineer some questions for those answers?
Yeah, absolutely, just like that.
And then do you take the actual content from the blog as the answer in the expert commentary? So kind of like reusing the content from the blog, but with the process of interviewing the article first,
Yeah.
and then coming up with interesting questions, and then that's how you identify the good parts of the article. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. If it was a piece on hair care and it was what foods are the best for dry hair, it will say in the article, eat garlic, mushrooms and melon, and you'll have great hair if you've got dry hair. So then actually, all you have to do is reverse engineer it and then just say, what are the best foods for dry hair, and then you can just rewrite it like you're interviewing.
Awesome. That's very good. I think this is very useful. I'll actually start doing this. I've learned something from you now. More like granular, which is great. So what do you do, let's say, when clients want the extreme and they only want us to talk about their brand, to keep like their brand, or even like their very specific service in a press release? Do we accept such things, or do we say, oh yeah, we can do it? Or how do we react when clients say, oh, I want you to talk about this very specific thing and get us links with it? Is it possible?
I suppose it depends on how niche the client is, and if the kind of sector or topic in the sector that the client is in is something that actually has like a page in a media outlet. So if you do have a sleeping client, there are lifestyle pages, so you know that you can fit them in somewhere. You know that there is a market for them. Similarly, if you have a food client, then there are food tabs on all of the media outlets, so that's fine. With a hair care one, beauty, fashion, you know that you can fit them in somewhere. If it's something a lot more niche about like maybe a single specific product, then it is a lot harder. And I think it's about having those conversations with clients and just letting them know that we're trying to find the fine line between what is what's really useful and what readers want, and what journalists then therefore want, and their actual brand, which can be a challenge at times. Which can be a challenge at times, but I think that's part of the job and part of the fun, because actually when you then are able to get something in like a really high DR publication that is really on brand for a client, like that's the best feeling. You know that you've done your job really well then. Yeah,
you know you've unleashed like your best creativity there. I know we had a client. I'm gonna say it. She was a PPC protection client, and they wanted things about like PPC protection. Of course, like most of the media will not talk and will not cover any story that you do about PPC protection. So what we've done is, I'm not sure whether you might remember.
Yeah, I remember.
We've actually done something like we went to Fortune 500 companies and looked at their ad spend. And we calculated what percentage of that yearly ad spend could be a click fraud. And that's how we put like a Fortune 500 angle onto like the PPC protection. And that's how we that's how we could actually get some really good lots of links about the Fortune 500 companies losing money due to how much money they are losing due to PPC fraud. Initially, we thought like this will be impossible, but somehow I think some team members found a way to do this, which was really good.
Yeah, I think you can definitely do something for everything. It just depends on how much you can do. If that's something, that's where the challenge
There
comes
might
in.
be. I mean, I know we have some clients who have like very specific products. Even now, recently we have a case. I'm not going to say the name, but they want like a really they want us to talk about a really specific thing to the press, and like we just like this will not be possible. Nobody will care about this very specific niche, and nobody will cover it. We will not get links with it. Right?
I think in that case it was a niche that actually none of us had even heard of, and if we haven't heard of it, we can't that's telling in that it won't be covered.
Yeah, nobody will want to read that. I mean, maybe some people will want to read that, but not the big audience of even like the very niche publications will probably not want to read that. But but Maddie, thank you very much for your very valuable insights.
Thank
it was
you.
a pleasure to have you here, and I think we'll have you lots more here. We'll aim to have you as often as possible because of your deep knowledge of PR. And thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you enjoyed these little really useful insights from Maddie. Wish you all the best.
Thanks. Bye.